This is not a story about cruelty without consequence. It is a story about how people forget what they once had. And about the patient, ordinary ways those who were hurt learn to protect themselves and teach.
My name is Claire Bennett. I was 62 when this started, though I still tell people I don't feel a day over 58. I live in a 2-story colonial on Maple Street in a town where summer parades close Main Road and everyone knows what color your mailbox is. My husband Aaron died 8 years ago. He built this porch swing with his own hands, and on Sundays we used to roast corn on it and laugh like the world would never get hard enough to stop us. We had 2 children, Michael, the oldest, who once used to hide our car keys because he thought it would be funny when I panicked, and Emma, my daughter, who preferred to sit with me on the back steps and gossip about everything she'd never do when she grew up. Both kids left Maple Street eventually. That's what kids do. They leave and they call, and sometimes they come home. Michael came home at 35 with a new suit and a new scarcity for tenderness. He was running a small tech distribution business. Not Silicon Valley stuff, just steady regional contracts, enough to buy a townhome and a new set of expectations. Emma stayed closer to me. She'd moved back after her own marriage collapsed. She started a little landscape design company, and she called me every few days to tell me about a plant she'd rescued, like it was a child. We were a normal family, small fights, smaller reconciliations, birthdays we forgot until midnight, and the kind of quiet love that happens when 2 people acknowledge life's tiny betrayals and keep showing up anyway. The house remembers everything. My husband's laugh bounces down the hallway. The hallway knows the scuff where Michael tripped on his skateboard at 12. The kitchen still smells like the sauce Aaron perfected. Houses keep you. They tuck your life into rafters and floorboards, and sometimes, when you need them, they protect what's left. So when I say I always believed my children would honor me, it wasn't naivete. It was a quiet faith built from decades of dinners, scraped knees, graduations, and years of working late so the mortgage would be less of a worry. The shift began small. It was the way Michael took calls in the living room where the photo frames were, voice clipped and private. It was the way his wife, Tiffany, referred to the house as a project and sighed when I offered to help with anything. It was 100 little things that slowly became a pattern. One afternoon, Michael announced that he needed funds for a new distribution facility. He was not dramatic about it. It came out like coffee orders. "Mom," he said at the kitchen table, elbows on the wood where Aaron carved the year they moved in, "we've got a chance to scale. I can expand into 2 more states if I can free up some capital. It's a short-term loan. We could, use the equity on the house." Pause. 0.5 seconds. I felt a squirm of unease. "This house," I said slowly, "isn't something I've thought of that way. It's our home." He smiled in that practiced way grown children do when they're trying to convince a parent of financial practicality. "We'd be protecting everything." "Mom, you know me. This is temporary. We'll refinance. I'll put a formal agreement down." I could see it, spreadsheets on his laptop, green arrows, growth curves, big numbers that weren't meaningful to me. Home felt less like a safe harbor and more like an asset on a market board. Over the next months, the requests became routine. Just a signature, just a short-term lien, just let me list you as a co-signer. Each request was framed as a stopgap. Each time I resisted, he grew a little colder. One night, after a dinner where Tiffany told a joke that landed with a sharpness like a blade, Michael left his phone on the table. A message pulsed on the screen. "Title transfer ready. Lawyer says we can make it clean." I felt my chest freeze. I didn't understand legalese, but the word transfer lodged like a pebble. I asked him about it. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You worry too much, Mom. We're just covering our bases," but covering their bases meant a paper trail. A paper trail meant decisions being made in rooms I wasn't invited into. Emma watched him become anxious, watched the way Carrie, a neighbor, stopped greeting him as often. She tasted worry the way she always tasted soil, with practiced concern. "Mom," she said gently one morning over coffee, "be careful. If you sign anything, make sure you know what it really says." It all came to a head at my 70th birthday party. We'd invited neighbors, a few relatives, and some old friends. Aaron's workman had come with cards. I'd baked my famous lemon cake. The house buzzed with a particular warmth that makes you forget trouble exists. Midway through the night, Michael rose with a speech. He was calm, polished, and he talked about new beginnings with that corporate cadence that strips people of humanity and leaves them as action items. "Mom," he said, smile stuccoed, "we love you. We do. But it makes more sense for the family if we, consolidate. We've been talking with the lawyer. There are opportunities to restructure." He said it like he was reading a letter from a board meeting. Tiffany clapped politely. Some cousins laughed unsurely. Then he did something I never expected. He pointed at me, not to toast my life, but to announce that the house would be made into a shared business asset. "This place is great," he told the room, "but I don't think it makes sense for just one person to be on the deed if it slows the company's momentum." The room murmured. Faces switched from celebratory to awkward. My sister squeezed my hand, and the squeeze felt like asking if I was sure I wanted more coffee when my life had already been stolen. I remember standing up. I remember the silence like a pressed cloth. "You can't do that," I said. My voice trembled, but I said it. "This house has memories. It's my home." He looked at me, and there was that look again. No anger, just the absence of filial warmth. "Mom," he said, softer this time, "we all have to make sacrifices. It's practical. It's not personal. It's not." The humiliation wasn't loud. It was a slow erosion. He had parked his practicalities on my chest as if they were tools to fix his life. The guests shuffled, offering smiles that meant nothing. After the party, Tiffany said she couldn't imagine how we couldn't see the bigger picture. Michael drove off with his coat on, and I watched his taillights make a sliver of red disappear down Maple Street. That night, the house felt too big. I sat on the porch swing, the one Aaron made, and the wood remembered how my hand had fit in his palm. I breathed as if to remember what steadied me. I told myself, "You will not be moved by humiliation alone. You will find a way to reclaim your dignity." A week later, a formal envelope arrived. It was from a title company. Michael had done exactly what his messages implied. He'd started paperwork to make moves on the property. The documents were complex, sterile, and full of signatures I didn't recognize. There was a clause inviting me to a signing appointment, a place where a notary would make quiet the things that were once held loudly at the kitchen table. I called Emma. We sat at the kitchen table like old conspirators, turning pages and pulling at threads we didn't know existed. "They can't do this without you," Emma said. "You haven't signed anything." That was true. For now, the law still bent toward proof on paper. But I had seen the way Michael had tried to normalize it at dinner parties. I had seen his casualness. The last straw was not the documents. It was the brazenness with which he tried to make me complicit in my own displacement. I could have called a lawyer that day and yelled, and certainly some folks would advise that reaction, but I had learned over the years that outrage alone rarely boxes the problem into a shape you like. Fury can be a blunt instrument. I wanted to be precise. So I did something ordinary. I made an appointment.
Mark Reynolds was the kind of lawyer who smelled faintly of coffee and paper and wore a sweater in summer offices because he liked the feeling of sensible things. He listened. He nodded. He didn't promise anger. He outlined options. "You can sign nothing," he said, flipping documents, "and the transfer won't happen without you. But what he's doing, talking about putting pressure on you, that's coercion. You could file to block it, but you could also restructure to protect yourself." "Restructure?" I repeated. "A trust," Mark said. "It gives you control over how assets are managed after transfer and can contain conditions. There are ways to protect you from being pressured into giving away everything. And you can make it so benefits apply only if someone honors the relationship." It sounded complicated. It sounded like lawyers and forms and legalese. But it also sounded like a way to put boundaries into the world that the grown children who'd been raised to reach for what they wanted would have to respect. "Do it," Emma said quietly after the meeting. These are games he's playing. Play them better. And so I did what most mothers with little legal savvy do when they're terrified. I learned just enough to make my fear useful. Over the next month, I transformed the house from a simple parcel of memory into a structure with rules. I met with Mark twice a week. We talked about trusts and conditions, about revocable versus irrevocable, about what would happen if someone acted selfishly. I did not sign away the house to Michael. I did not confront him. I knew how to keep anger for later, as a tool, as a lesson, not as a flare. I asked Mark about a protective trust that would keep my home from being transferred without my consent, but still provide a way for my children to be cared for if they did the right thing. An incentive trust, he said finally. You can establish conditions. If they meet the conditions, they receive benefits. If they don't, the benefits go elsewhere. What would meet the conditions look like? I asked. Respect, Mark said. Simple things. Continue living with you for a certain amount of time. Visit weekly. Treat you with dignity. Or you could tie distributions to community service or attendance at family meetings. Whatever you deem valuable. I laughed softly. So, I'm putting behavior into the fine print? You're setting expected behavior into the future. You have every right to do that. Emma helped in the practical ways she could. She filed forms, sorted old photographs into labeled boxes, and made tea that didn't burn my throat. We made it clear in our paperwork that the trust existed to protect the home and to encourage the family to maintain connection, not to punish for the sake of punishment. I also made something else. I quietly consolidated records, placed clear deeds and copies with the trust, and updated emergency contacts. I called the people in town who mattered. The pastor, the neighbor who kept an eye on our yard, my sister. I didn't tell Michael. I didn't need to. I told the house, the lawyer, and myself. There's a kind of cunning that looks a lot like prudence. You put your affairs in order not as an act of cruelty, but as an act of survival. And as I signed the last document and slid the pen across the paper, I felt oddly lighter. Not because I had wielded power, but because I had reclaimed peace. A month later, Michael came back to the house that smelled like lemon cake and old books. He knocked. I opened the door because I always open the door. He looked surprised I was home, like he expected an empty shell. "Mom," he said. His voice had the strained quality of someone who had rehearsed apologies and found their ledger more persuasive. "We need to talk." We sat at the same table he'd once smeared jam on as a toddler. Tiffany lingered at the edge of the kitchen, watching. Michael talked about hardships, cash flow, a partner pulling out, the need for security. I let him speak. When he finished, he reached across the table as though to touch me. I moved my cup a little. "I saw the paperwork," he said suddenly. "With the trust. Why would you do that? We could have worked it out. You tried to work it out by telling everyone at my birthday party what you planned to do," I said. "You tried to normalize taking this house away from me as if it were a spreadsheet item." He took a breath like he'd been slapped. "Mom, that's not fair. I've been carrying a lot. Aaron's building wasn't enough. I'm trying. Why would you make things hard?" "I didn't make things hard," I said. "You chose to make it hard. I made sure you couldn't offload your responsibilities by making me complicit. And I made arrangements so our family's choices carry weight." He leaned forward, eyes earnest suddenly, the practiced corporate shell cracking to reveal, for a moment, the boy who'd once hidden my keys. "Please, Claire. Call it off. We can restructure. I'll sign anything. I'll make it up to you." This was the moment people imagine when they think about stories like mine. The son begging, the mother softening, the happy reconciliation. That's a movie version. Life prefers more subtle choreography. "You can still change," I said. "It's not about punishment. It's about the life you build when you remember people are people, not assets. The trust is not about spite. It's about boundaries. Live differently for a year. Visit the house without making speeches. Sit at the table and listen, rather than calculate. Give Emma her rightful share if you've been dishonest. Proof of change. That's the condition." Michael's face lost color. Tiffany's jaw clenched. I could see the plan unravel, not because I'd wanted to ruin him, but because I'd shifted the rules. "If you respect those terms," I added, "you will be provided for. If you don't, there are consequences." I said it plainly, the way a person explains a recipe. This is how it works. He stormed out of the house that day like someone leaving behind their dignity in the coat rack. The neighborhood watched. Mrs. Alvarez, who waters my porch plants, later told me she'd heard him shout in the street. I poured another cup of tea because the ritual steadied me. Over the next few months, the consequences of Michael's choices unfolded like autumn leaves falling. Business deals that had hung on promises collapsed when partners learned there were internal disputes. Employees got nervous and started looking elsewhere. Tiffany, who had liked the idea of life as a backdrop for growth, found the reality of empty promises heavy. "Everything's changing," Michael said one night when he called, voice thin. "I lost a partner. We had to vacate the warehouse. I'm struggling." There was no arrogance left in his voice. There was only the cold, plain fact of consequence. For a while he tried. He called less to argue and more to explain. He visited sometimes, not because the trust demanded it. The trust specified periodic, respectful contact and good faith participation in family matters, but because his options were limited. He apologized at one point on my porch, an apology that tasted like something between remorse and fear. Still, there are patterns that resist undoing. Michael's pride had been fed for years by a steady stream of indulgence. Now it had to be reffed with humility, and humility is an acquired taste. One afternoon, Emma knocked on the door holding a bag of tools. She'd been working for a local community garden, and she'd found solace in making things grow. "He came by to mow the lawn," she said. "He didn't get out of the truck. He stared at the house like someone looking through glass." "He'll learn," she added, voice steady. "It will take time, but he'll learn." I didn't relish the thought of watching my son fall. There is a difference between allowing natural consequences and celebrating misfortune. I wanted him to understand, to change, to become someone I recognized. Part of me mourned the boy who hid the keys, because I told him to stop watching scary movies at night. Life wears lessons like clothing. Sometimes they fit. Sometimes we look in the mirror and wonder who's wearing them. One rainy Thanksgiving, Michael showed up at the door with his hair plastered to his forehead and a Thanksgiving pie that had taken the brunt of his attention. He didn't knock at first. He waited on the porch, and when I opened the door, he looked like someone who had been hollowed by worry. "Can I come in?" he asked. I hesitated. Then I stepped aside. He came in like a man returning with a small offering. Tiffany hadn't come. She'd left earlier that year, tired of instability and promises unkept. "Mom," he said, sitting at the table like an old habit, the kind that makes you suspect all the easy roads have been walked away from. "I want to try." "Really?" He spoke about the pain he'd caused. He told me about losing clients, about sleepless nights. But then he said something I didn't expect. "I missed this. Not the house as a thing, but the way you make coffee and how you laugh at the worst jokes." I thought I could buy trust. I can't. I want to earn it. Earn it. That was the right word. We made small agreements, not the legal kind, but the human ones. He started volunteering at the community center, where I knew his old high school friends still worked. He worked with Emma one weekend a month in the gardens. He would come to family meetings. He called more often, not with demands, but with questions about how I was and how Emma was. Most of all, he showed up in ways that couldn't be papered over. He fixed a leaking gutter himself instead of hiring someone. He picked up groceries without posting about it. He sat in silence with me on the porch and let a television show play without interrupting. Time healed only because he refused to let pride harden him into a monument. The trust didn't evaporate. It didn't need to. The point of the trust had been to create a scaffold on which human behavior could change. The legal structure supported the moral structure. You don't get all of someone back at once. Trust is measured in small, repeatable acts. When Michael finally received benefits from the trust, it wasn't because he'd gamed the system. It was because he had matched the ledger of paperwork with a ledger of behavior. Tiffany never returned, and that was a sadness that belonged to the messy world we live in. Sometimes people make choices and don't come back even when others are willing to welcome them. Michael had to accept that, and he accepted the responsibility for it. Years later, the house still stands on Maple Street. The paint's been touched up. The porch swing rests on ropes that have been replaced. There are new photographs on the wall. There are shabby things, and there are things that no money can buy. The details of ordinary life. People asked me why I didn't just sign the papers and quiet the conflict. Some said I had been cruel. Others said I was wise. The truth sits somewhere between. I wanted something that would force my family to remember that home is not merely an investment vehicle. I wanted them to remember the rhythm of presence, the way a person's breath changes when they walk into a kitchen that smells like cookies. I wanted them to feel the inconvenience of care so they might stop treating loved ones like collateral. The trust was not a weapon. It was a lesson plan. It was the scaffolding we use to teach a son that dignity cannot be bought, that apology must be accompanied by action, and that people flourish when held to standards of decency. If you're listening and wondering what you'd do in my place, I'll tell you this. There is power in preparation. The kind of power that lets you sleep at night. You can be furious and still be strategic. You can feel hurt and still keep your dignity. You can protect what matters. My son came back, not as a perfect man, but as a better one. My daughter stayed and grew into someone who understands that roots matter. And me? I learned that a home remembers. It also teaches, if you're willing to put lessons into practice and not into revenge. So ask yourself, what would you protect and how would you teach someone to cherish it? If you like this story, subscribe and tell me in the comments. What would you do if your child treated your home like a ledger? Would you fight, file, or forgive? I'd love to hear your thoughts.